This episode of Buy Black Podcast is brought to you by Haptic Consulting. Haptic Consulting specializes in maximizing the value your organization gets from its training budget by focusing on business needs, eliminating unnecessary training development, and helping you build a culture of engagement from the executive level down. Visit www.hapticconsulting.com to learn how I can help you develop better leaders, happier employees, and a more profitable company culture. Or you can email me at gerald@hapticconsulting.com. That's GERALD@hapticconsulting.com. Now let's get into the show.
Can you imagine you yourself going to work every single day in a team where you know that if you take a great idea to your manager, they are going to open a door and they're going to let you put that great idea in front of their boss or the person above them? Could you imagine how motivated you would be to go out and try to find solutions to problems, to try to create something great and new? That's how you create teams, build teams that move mountains. Buy Black Podcast, episode 37. 7 steps to building a team that can move mountains.
Welcome to Buy Black, the only podcast dedicated to helping you find, connect with, and support Black-owned businesses. We're on a mission to bring consumers and business owners together to ignite the global Black economy. I'm your host, Gerald Jones, and if you're a Black business owner or a socially conscious consumer, you've joined the right community. Ready? Let's get to work.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Buy Black. This is episode number 37 of your only podcast dedicated to helping you find and connect with Black-owned businesses. I'm your host, Gerald Jones, and today it's me. It's going to be a solo episode. I do not have a guest coming on. Got a couple in the queue, but I decided to put those off because I haven't actually used a platform in a while just to talk about something that was on my mind that I wanted to bring to you guys. So I decided I want to do that today. Before we jump into today's content, let's hit the quick housekeeping things on the reviews. Again, really appreciate it when you guys get in there and you toss us reviews both in iTunes or on the app on Apple or on the app on Google Play. At this point, we've got 19 total reviews on iTunes. We've got 23 for the Apple app. So for those of you who've downloaded the iPod or the iPhone app, really appreciate the fact that you guys are getting in there. Give us those great reviews. And then we're also up to 14 on the Android app. And so we have a new review that just came in, 5 stars from JC Matthews. He says, great podcast. Hey, JC, thanks for being out there, and look forward to having you on the show. Actually, next week, folks, JC is going to be on the show talking to us about insurance, which is an extremely important factor in a lot of our lives when it comes to talking about taking care of our families and potential avenues to bring wealth into the family. So I'm not going to talk about that because I don't know much about it. But next week, JC is going to be on the show. He's going to tell you everything that he's learned in his 10 years in the business. Aside from that, I wanted to do a quick update on some things that I learned about how podcasts get ranked and weighted and rated and all that kind of stuff over in iTunes. So you hear me say all the time, like, hey, give us those reviews. It really helps us get found in iTunes, this, that, and the other. In reality, the reviews are there to help anybody who already has found the show to decide whether or not it's content that is worth listening to, right? So that's really why I need the reviews. However, pause for effect, I found out recently that the way that Apple ranks the shows is based on the number of subscriptions. And so there's the total number of subscriptions, and then there's also like the number of new subscriptions over the last however period of time. And that's how it ranks shows to decide what's going to show up on the first page or the next page or anything like that. So that being said, now that I understand that, for everybody out there. It doesn't matter what platform you're listening on, doesn't matter whether you've downloaded the app. It will really help me, it will help the show get found more if you go to iTunes or if you have an iPhone or iPod, and go into the podcast and subscribe to Buy Black, Build the New Black Wall Street. Your subscriptions are going to help the show get found more often by more people within those databases. So, apologize for the previous confusion on that, but this is one of those things that podcasters don't really know because Apple doesn't always just say this is what you're getting ranked on. But that's what I found out recently. So, regardless of what platform you have, please go over and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, formerly known as iTunes. Um, Other things I wanted to hit you guys with before we get into the main content of the show. So this weekend, I just spent all of the last 2 days outside in the backyard of my house building this home garden. Um, I did a couple of Facebook Live videos. If you are part of the Facebook group, By Black Podcast Community, I will share those videos over into the community. You can kind of see what I'm talking about. But we're building this huge garden in our backyard. It's going to be big enough to take care of our entire family, plus probably like 5 other families when we get done with this thing. But I spent the whole weekend uh, building that. I'm saying that because, well, it's past midnight on Sunday night. This show is supposed to be coming out Monday morning, but I'm gonna have to record this show and then go get in the bed, and then I'm gonna have to produce the show and bring it out Tuesday morning because I didn't have time to work on the podcast this weekend. I was outside working on my garden, which was great. But the main reason I'm bringing this up is because yesterday, so Saturday, the 28th. Woke up early with the kids, and we went to the YMCA to watch my wife Nyla do a weightlifting challenge, right? So the kids they went into the care facility or whatever, but I spent the morning out there with her and her weightlifting group, and she did a great job lifting all these heavy things. And I caught a couple of videos of that, but it was just a good time. In between her sets, we just sat there and did the thing we do, which is kind of nerd out with each other and laugh and try to keep her from getting nervous and all these cool things. And then we got done with that and we came home and immediately went outside and we started working on building the boxes, like the boxes that we're gonna grow the plants in. We were building those from scratch in the backyard. So we spent all the rest of Saturday building those boxes together. The kids came outside, they were helping, they were handing me, the screws that I needed for this box or that box. They were handing us the tools for measuring stuff. It was great. It was a big huge, cool family time. We spent the whole day outside together. The dogs got involved. It was great. It was great spending that time with my wife, working on something together and enjoying each other's company. And then today, did the exact same thing. Got up here on Sunday and started working on the other part of it, which was this big, huge U-shaped box inside this enclosure that we built. And by we built, I mean we paid somebody to build. Um, but we're building the actual boxes. All right. Forget about that. Nobody cares. All right. Well, I do. But um, yeah, so we built this huge U-shaped box inside this enclosure today. That took all day to get done. But again, it was an entire weekend of just spending time outside with my family, with my wife and with my kids, and not being plugged into anything. I think the only time over the last couple of days that I touched any type of social media was when I got done doing work and I picked it up to do a Facebook Live just to show and talk about what we were doing. But it was glorious, man. I haven't had that much fun um, in a long, long time. and it was well worth it. So I say all that to tell you, if you're out there listening, if you were like me and you prioritize work over everything, and if you justify prioritizing work over everything by saying, well, somebody's got to pay for all of this stuff, or whatever it is, take some time, right? Take some time during this coming week or this next weekend and just unplug from everything and just do something with your family. It doesn't have to be building a garden, right? It doesn't have to be anything serious, but just unplug and just go spend that time doing something. It is just so much fun. And it was a break that I didn't know that I needed. It was a reconnection that I didn't really know that I needed as well, with Nyla and with the kids. It was a really good time. I walked away from this weekend feeling like this is probably the most productive weekend that I've had in a really, really, really long time. So, yeah, that's that. Go out and do it. Enough about that. I know that you guys want to get into the content, and for today's content, what I decided to do is a show about how you can build a team that moves mountains. Um, One of the things that I do, one of the things that I have expertise in is in leadership and leadership coaching, team building, leading teams, leading high functioning, highly productive teams. I've been doing that for my entire adult life and learning about how to do that since I was a small kid. So I've got a lot of expertise in leadership. I went through the most rigorous leadership um, process, I would say, in the entire world, and that is, being a United States Marine, and more specifically, being a United States Marine infantryman. Um, there's absolutely no way that you can be a grunt in the Marines and not pick up a thing or two about leadership. And I fortunately, over the 8 years of my career in the Marine Corps, I had lots of great leaders and mentors who helped me to hone my leadership skills. And then I left the Marine Corps and I went into the Air Force. And I've been there for 18, or not 18, for 10, so 18 total in service, 10 going on 11 years, right? And I learned a completely different style of leadership, right? It didn't change who I was as a leader, but I definitely learned that there's a way you can go about leadership when you're dealing with Marines that is not going to connect, that is not going to work when you're dealing with people who are in the Air Force. You're dealing with airmen. So that expanded my leadership capabilities. And then I got into the corporate world just about 7.5 years ago. I started my first like major corporate job. And, within a very short period of time, I was functioning as a leader within my team within this corporate job. And I found out through a lot of pain and a lot of trial and error and some almost completely broken relationships that the way that you lead people in a military environment, regardless of what branch, is not going to work when you're leading people in a corporate environment. And so, over the course of my years, I have been able to receive guidance and mentorship from a lot of great leaders in a lot of um, different functions, be they sports or military or corporate. And it's molded this view and vision of leadership and leading teams that I now use as a coach and as a consultant to help people develop better leaders and to help people build better teams. And so, what I'm going to talk about today is going to be 7 steps that you can take to build a team that will move mountains. And that's what everybody wants, right? We all want to lead high functioning teams. It doesn't matter whether it is a sports team, whether it's, a military team, whether it's a team in your work environment, or whether you're starting your own business and you got to build a team around you there. And I can definitely tell you there's two different It's two different things to create a team in your own business where you're the head of everything versus creating a team or leading a team in a larger organization like the military or in a corporate environment. What I'm going to be talking about today is ways that you can build a team that moves mountains in an existing structure. So whether that be, a basketball team, whatever different type of team for sports, whether that be in the military, whether that be in your corporate environment, you go to work every day, you're a leader, you're a manager, you're whatever, and you're leading people, you're managing them, you're trying to get the best out of them. That's what I'm going to be talking about today. All right. And so I have 7 different aspects of building a great team. And we're going to jump right into them. So the first one that I'm going to share with you is first thing you need to do is you need to identify your strengths and your weaknesses. Now, that can mean a lot of different things, but specifically, what I want you to identify in strengths and weaknesses is your strengths and weaknesses as it relates to your leadership strengths and your management strengths and your leadership weaknesses and your management weaknesses. Because there is a huge difference between being a leader and being a manager, right? And a lot of times you have people who are managing and they think they're leading, but they're not doing it very well. And then you have people who are great at leading, but are not very good at the management side of running a team. And so the first thing you have to do is kind of identify which one of those things do you do better, right? Do you lead better or do you manage better? So let's talk a little bit about the difference between a leader and a manager. I'm sure you can find 50,000 blog posts about this, so I'm going to keep it short, sweet, and simple. When we talk about the difference between a leader and a manager, a leader is a person who has a vision, can articulate that vision to the people that they are leading, and then they can inspire people to accomplish the goals that are going to make that vision become a reality. That's what a leader does. And I'll say that again. It's a person who has a vision, has the ability to articulate that vision to the people who are being led, and then has the ability to inspire those people to accomplish the goals required to make that vision become a reality. That is a leader, okay? A manager, on the other hand, is somebody who tracks all of the work that goes into accomplishing the goals that make the vision a reality. A manager is a person who makes sure that everybody is pulling whatever their share of the weight is along the way. They're tracking progress, they're tracking tasks, they're tracking do outs, they're tracking quality control, they're doing those detailed pieces of making sure that the machine of this team is clicking and functioning and moving forward at the scheduled pace. That's a manager, right? Now, there's nothing that says that your leader and your manager can't be the same person. In a lot of cases, it will be. When you're running your team, it's very likely that if you're the leader, you're expected to manage. But all of us do one of those things better than we do the other. And we've got to be honest with ourselves. You need to be honest with yourself about where your strengths and your weaknesses lie. I can tell you for me, my strength is in leadership, right? My weakness is in management. I hate managing. I hate managing people. I hate managing tasks. I hate keeping track of all those little nitpicky details that you have to keep track of in order to have a project completed successfully. I recognize those things, but I hate the process. I really, really do. But the leadership side of it, seeing the big picture, seeing that vision, articulating that to people, and then getting people inspired to follow this track, I love that side of it, right? I love leadership. And so I know where my strengths and my weaknesses lie, right? And we're going to let those sit. I want you to first identify, are you better at leading or are you better at managing? The second aspect, the second thing you need to do is you need to identify your team members' strengths, not weaknesses, their strengths. You don't want to go try to identify their weaknesses because, well, one, you come at people that you're going to be leading, and the first thing you're doing is telling them, "Oh, I recognize that you're weak in this and this and this and this and this." It's not going to inspire much of anything in them, except for them to be constantly self-conscious and feeling like they're being judged. So you don't want to go and try to identify the weaknesses that the people on your team have. Trust me, weaknesses will be revealed over time with people within your team. So you don't have to go searching for them. You'll just recognize patterns, or you'll recognize behaviors that different people have that counter their strengths. But you want to definitely look for the strengths that those folks have, whether it's because they're detail oriented, or whether you have somebody who's a big picture thinker like you, whether you have somebody who is great at writing, whether you have somebody who is, great at whatever technical aspects of the job that you have. You want to identify all the different strengths of the people that you have inside of your team, right? That is going to be number two. Number three is huge. Number three is probably the most important thing that you need to do if you are going to create and build a team that moves mountains. You need to listen and learn about your team members. Okay? I'm going to say that again. You need to listen to and you need to learn about your team members. And I'm not talking about listen to them and learn about what they do great on the job. No, seriously, you need to find out, who are they? Who are these people who you are supposed to lead? What do they love? What do they do when they're not working? Where do they want to go with their career? What skills, what kind of experience do they lack right now to get where they say that they want to go? These are all things that you want to listen to and you want to learn about your team. And in doing this, it's going to help you to identify each person on your team's intrinsic motivators. Okay? Intrinsic motivators. So this kind of takes us to a little bit of a rabbit hole about motivation. And the two primary types of motivation, you have extrinsic motivation, which is any outside force coming in and saying, hey, you need to do this because either there's a reward on the backside of it for you, or if you don't do it, there's a punishment on this side of it for you, right? That's an extrinsic motivator. But you want to identify your team members' intrinsic motivators, which is, this is something that I care about, that I'm passionate about, that I see in my future, and I want to make it happen. All right? Those intrinsic motivators are so important for building a high functioning team, because everything that you as a leader do working with your team, each one of those people, the tasks that you give them, the guidance that you them, the mentorship that you give them, should all be tied back to their intrinsic motivators. Everything you teach someone, everything you show someone, everything that you have them do, you want to try to figure a way to tie that to something that they already are passionate about and want to do in their life, because it makes people want to do work. It makes them want to learn new things. And it makes them happy that you've taken an interest in the things that interest them and in helping them accomplish them, right? So you listen, find out who the people are that you work that are working for you and your team. What do they love? Who do they love? What do they do when they're not working? It's a huge thing. What do they want in their careers? What skills and experience do they need to get there? ID their intrinsic motivation. All right. So that is number three, right? Step number four, right? Aspect number four of building a team that can move mountains. You need to recruit a great number two. Okay. Now we're going to assume, since you're, at least in this example, since you're working within an organization that already exists, a lot of times we don't get to pick our teams. If you do get to handpick your team, very fortunate for you. Most of us don't, right? So we're going to assume that you don't get to handpick your team. The team is decided for you. But in learning the people within your team, you're learning the levels of experience they have, you're learning their strengths and their weaknesses. You want to recruit your number two out of that team. And preferably, you want to recruit somebody who excels at the thing that you are weak in when it comes to management versus leadership. Okay? You want to recruit a number two who excels in the thing that you are weak in. So, like for me, I hate management. I am not very, I don't like to be diligent with all of the details. That's why I'm all about putting processes in place, whereas people can manage themselves. I'll put a process in place where people can report their tasks, they can update their tasks, they can update their progress, they can ask for help. I like using tools for that because anything that reduces the amount that I have to do it and lets people manage themselves, where I can just go in and kind of check the progress and ask if I see something that's a little bit off, saves me so much time and energy, right? I don't like managing. Um, but in that, I want to look for a number two who is very detail oriented, very focused on the management side of all the different pieces that need to go into place in order for us to succeed, right? Because where my focus can be upwards towards the vision, I have somebody who's right there by me whose focus can be inwards towards the processes and making sure that we are following those processes, right? So you want to do that as well when you are building your team. Identify a number two who has the complementary skill set for you, and I've seen this work on both sides. So I'm running a team right now, and I have two people actually who I lean on very strongly for the detail side of this, the management side of this. And then I have one other person on my team who I lean on who is a big picture thinker like me, who I can bounce ideas off of and actually listen and get their input about the direction that I would want to go with this or with that. So I lean very heavily on my team because I've got a team full of experts, and they know what they're doing. So that's kind of how I use my number two, and I've just got a bunch of number twos. But I've seen it the other way. I said I started my corporate job about 7 years ago, and shortly thereafter, I started having some leadership responsibilities within the team. At that point, I was working, side by side with another guy, very good friend of mine now, over the 7 years that we've known each other. But he is a very, very detail oriented manager style person, right? And he leaned on me because I'm very much more the, um, you know, see the vision, see the big picture, inspire other people to go for it type of person. And so I was his number two, and he focused a lot on the management side of things, but he gave me a lot of the responsibility for um, directing the work. And pointing out to the team the big picture goal of what we were doing and helping everybody to lay out the large view plan of how to get there, and then inspiring folks to stay on that path to get to our big vision goal. Whereas our actual leader of the team, he spent more of his energy on making sure that everybody was on task and everything was being managed properly, and that we had all the T's crossed and the I's dotted. And we had a very high functioning team. So it can work either way. There's nothing that says that just because you're the team lead, that means that you have to be the only person who takes on the roles of both leader and manager. All right. So recruit your number two, preferably somebody who excels at your weaknesses when it comes to management versus leadership. Taking it to number five. Right. Once you've already you've learned about your team, you've kind of recruited your number two and people to help you out. You want to communicate your vision. You want to set the compass, which means you want to set the direction for action, and then go. All right. You communicate your vision to the team, set the compass, give them direction, and then you want to get people rolling. You want to get them going. And the reason for that, if you don't communicate your vision to people up front, even if you're running a team that has a bunch of little processes that it has to do every single day, and everybody kind of seems like they're just doing their daily nugget of their little piece of this pie. If people don't know from the very beginning what the long-term goal is, what the end game is for this thing, then they don't have a frame of reference for the work that they're doing today. And if you don't have a frame of reference for the work you're doing today, it can be really easy to get burnt out because you feel like you're just slogging along doing the same thing over and over, but you don't really know why. And so, to avoid that, as a great team leader, you set that vision up front and you let people know there's an end point to this. We get to this goal, we get to this future reality, and that's it. We've made this happen. So you communicate that vision, and then you point people in a direction, right? These are the things we're going to do first. We're going to start here, here, here. You give them the direction, you let them know what they need to immediately start on so that people, again, don't just sit down and say, well, there's this big picture. I don't really know how to get there, so I'm going to just start making up work to do. No, I've given you the big picture. I've also given you the first 2 or 3 steps that we're going to take as a team. And you even assign those things to people. It's like, you're responsible for this, you're responsible for that, you're responsible for this, but you give them that direction. You set the compass, and then you turn them loose and you let them go. All right? So that is number 5. Communicate your vision, set the compass, and go. Number 6, this is what you do as the team is in motion. Empower, mentor, delegate, and support. Okay? As the leader of that team, your job is to empower each person on that team to accomplish whatever task it is that they need to accomplish, whatever mini projects it is that they need to accomplish, and whatever tasks they can accomplish that are tied to their intrinsic motivation goals, right? You want to empower them to explore different and new ways to solve problems, right? Give them a little bit of the authority to make decisions on their own. It's called autonomy, right? Not micromanaging, not being right over their shoulder all the time, just saying, hey, you know where we're trying to go. If you know a better way to build this mousetrap, you've got the freedom, a little bit of wiggle room to explore better ways to build that mousetrap. We just know in the end, we got to have a trap that catches mice, right? So you empower people to make their own decisions, give them some autonomy, mentor them along the way. Whenever you empower people, they're going to go out on the limb every once in a while, and sometimes they're going to get stranded out there, right? They're going to make a mistake. You need to mentor them in those moments. All right. I gave you a little bit of lee room. You were going this direction. This is why this is kind of out of bounds, right? Maybe next time, try this, try that. Here's an article that you can read that can help you to avoid that problem next time. Oh, I've got this great book I read about that. Here, let me toss that to you. Hey, come back to me in a couple of weeks. Let's talk about it, right? Or just in the moment, giving people guidance and mentorship about how to avoid a mistake that they were coming up on, right? You empower people to make decisions, and then you're there to mentor and guide them and keep them on the path along the way. The next thing, delegate there, right? We talked earlier about knowing whether you're great at leading or great at managing. There's nothing wrong with delegating the piece of that you're not great at or that you don't want to do, right? You don't have to do everything. It's really interesting. People a lot of times when you first move into a management position or a leadership position, people feel guilty, right? Either they feel guilty or they end up doing all of the work of the entire team, feeling like I've got to do this. Because when you start leading and you start managing a team, you end up finding that you've got downtime, right? And you feel like you got to fill that up because you've spent your entire life as a worker, as a person who was producing a product or a widget or something that came out of the fruit of your labor. And so when you first move into management, it's almost this guilty feeling of I don't know what to do with my hands. I need to do something. And so that can be a trap, and you feel like you've got to do all of it and you can't delegate anything out because either you don't trust other people on your team to get the job done right, and if so, that's something that you've got to work through yourself. That's something you need a mentor to help you through yourself. But a lot of times it's also just the fact of feeling guilty that everybody on your team is constantly working on tasks and you find yourself with open space, find yourself with downtime. um, what can you be doing with that downtime? If you are delegating out the work that can be done by other people on your team, and it might be stretch work, it might be work that they don't have all the skills to do yet. But instead of delegating that work and disappearing, you delegate that work, and then we go back to mentoring, right? So delegation is a form of empowerment. And then as you're trusting somebody else to do the work, they're checking in with you, they're giving you preliminary products or drafts. You got the chance to go and review those drafts and then go sit down with them and mentor and review what they did and provide feedback on how they can improve it, right? And now you're empowering that person to gain a skill set that they wouldn't have had before. You're giving them a little bit of a taste of what it is that someone in a management role will do. If that's something that they aspire to in the future, you are now helping to uplift and guide that person to achieve the goals that they want to achieve. Remember, this is all about building a team that moves mountains. One of the key things that helps a team move mountains is that the team members have trust in the leader and they have respect for that leader. And a lot of times they even love the person that is leading and they don't want to let them down. I've seen people who lead through fear. I've been the person who led through fear. And you know what? That's a team that can perform and it will deliver great products, but they will hate every day at work. They will hate you. And eventually there will be a chink in that armor and the whole thing can fall apart. You can accomplish the same productivity and more, and for a longer sustained period of time, by engendering trust from the people that work for you, by giving them more responsibility, by giving them the leeway to make mistakes without getting their head bit off. And oh, by the way, when you make mistakes, all I'm going to do is come through and I'm going to mentor you and guide you, and I'm going to give you another shot to grow from this and to make a better product next time. All right. When you do all of those things, every single person in that team feels like they have a role to fill. And every person in that team feels like that they're having the opportunity to do more, to learn more, to be seen as more than just a person over in the machine pushing the same button over and over and over again. And when you respect people's expertise, when you respect their time, when you respect the things that they tell you that they want to accomplish in their life, they will reciprocate that respect and they will put more effort into the work that they do for you and for the team. All right. And then the last of that was support. So empower, mentor, delegate, and provide support. And that support that can be regarding the job, that can be personal, That can be whatever it means to support the people on your team is another huge thing that you're there for. Sometimes as a leader, sometimes as a manager, the absolute best thing that you can do with one of your teammates is just recognize when they're having an off day. Recognize when maybe the attitude is off a little bit, or the work productivity is a little bit lower, or the quality of the work coming out is a little bit lower. And rather than jumping on them about that, just pull them to the side and just say, hey, I recognize that there's a little something going on today. You know, what's up? And just shut up and listen. Because the first thing that you're going to get is, oh, nothing, I'm fine. Really? Well, XYZ. Okay. Talk to me about that if you don't mind. XYZ ABC. And DEFGHIJKLMNOP, right? It will start flowing out. And you just listen and absorb whatever it is that this team member is frustrated with or is dealing with or that is heavy on their chest because they need to get it out. And by being the person who sees, again, get to know who your people are, who sees there might even just be something like a different look that this person has today. If you recognize that and you come to them and say, look, I care. I recognize there is something off today. I don't know what it is, but if you want to talk about it, I'm here. Again, that's that trust. So be there to support your team members. And if you find out, hey, there is something major that's going on, this person is going through, again, create that leeway for them to be able to take care of it and handle it. If it's something that's like, oh man, you really shouldn't be here today, you should be taking care of this. If it's within your authority to let them go take care of it, let them go take care of it, right? If it's not within your authority, figure out a way to get to the person who has the authority and provide that support for your teammate or for your team members. Whatever you can do to make sure that they feel like human beings who are cared for and who have the room to move and function and make decisions and solve problems without constantly being under a gun, under a microscope, right? So that was number 6. This brings us to our last component here. The last aspect of building a team that will move mountains is you need to see your role as a team leader as a two-part role when it comes to dealing with your team and other people outside of your team. All right. You need to be an umbrella for your team, and you need to be a champion for your team. All right. An umbrella and a champion. Now, the first thing with the umbrella, right? We've all heard the term, right? Um, excrement rolls downhill, right? Somebody up top gets yelled at, they're going to go yell at somebody below them. And that person's going to go yell at somebody below them. And that person's going to go yell at somebody below them. And that ball of excrement just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger as it rolls downhill. If you want to be a great leader of a team that will move mountains, you need to be a big, strong umbrella for all the members of your team, which means that if that excrement is rolling downhill and it makes it to you, you absorb all of it. If somebody tries to take it to anybody who's within your team, you cut them off and you make sure that they come and they bring it to you. And if they got somebody they want to yell at, have them yell at you. When somebody comes and says, hey, there's a problem, this happened, you take the responsibility of it, saying, that was on me. That was my role, that was my decision, that was whatever. But you take it and you suck all of that up, all of that excrement that was rolling down that hill for so long. It made it to you and it all stopped right at you. And then when you go to your team, we are back in empower, mentor, delegate, support mode. If it was somebody within your team that caused the problem, that started the excrement that came down the hill, you're not going to go pour that on them. Sure, You absolutely need to let them know about the mistake that was made, but you use it as an opportunity to educate. You use it as an opportunity to mentor, to show the correct way to get the job done, and then you empower that person to do it better the next time, or to fix the mistake if it's something that needs to be fixed before a product can go out or anything like that. But what you don't do is throw anybody on your team under the bus, or because you got yelled at as the team lead, you go in and you're yelling at your folks for getting you in trouble. That's not going to engender any type of trust, right? That's not going to make people want to work for you. So there's got to be a little bit of a confidence on your part that, if they put me in a leadership position, this company, this organization, they put me in a leadership position, that means they've trusted me to produce something, right? And I've got a little bit of, be it authority, whatever you want to call this word, I've got some Teflon attached to me, right? That if somebody yells at me, that doesn't mean it's the end of my career. Doesn't mean it's the end of my job. If I take responsibility for something being messed up, that doesn't mean I'm going to get fired immediately, right? You've got to be able to have somebody come down and say, this was jacked up, and just say, yep, that was me. It was my call. I did it. It's my team. Whatever it is, we'll handle it. That happens here. Well, who specifically was it? Doesn't matter. It's my team. I'll take the hit on it. Let me go so that we can fix it, right? And then you go and you handle it and you fix it with your team, all through empowerment, mentoring, delegating, and support, right? So be the umbrella. Anything comes downhill, it stops at you, and you deflect it all away from the team so that they feel safe to just continue trying new things, solving problems, improving processes, and making the world a better place. And then the other side to it is you need to be the team's champion, which means that anything great that anyone in your team does, the first thing that you're doing is you're trying to put that person in front of higher leaders so that they can be recognized. If anybody in your team comes to you with a really great idea, right, you don't want to be the one to go and communicate that idea up the chain all the time. If you have the ability, you want to open that door to bring that team member into that room that they may not have access to, and you let them explain their idea to those higher ups. You want to be the champion. You want to be the person who makes sure that your high performing team members are getting the credit for everything that they're doing. They're getting the opportunity to promote. They may even be getting the opportunity to promote into your job, right? Because you should be grooming people. That's why you got to find your number two. You should be grooming people to take your job as soon as you take the seat. I mean, as soon as you start doing that job, you immediately are grooming somebody to take it from you. This is the opposite of what a lot of managers and so called leaders do. They want to hoard everything, they want to take responsibility. Well, not responsibility, they want to take credit for everything good. And they don't want the folks within their team to speak directly with anyone above them because they might see that this person is actually pretty smart. They might be able to do the job that you're doing. Well, that's a threat. No, that's weak leadership. It's poor management. It's not being a mentor, right? Your job is to be the champion. You have access to spaces that people in your team don't. If they've got information that needs to go into those spaces to those key people, it's your job to make sure that they get the chance to speak that into the world and to be recognized for the great things they do. Can you imagine you yourself going to work every single day in a team where you know that if you take a great idea to your manager, they are going to open a door and they're going to let you put that great idea in front of their boss or the person above them? Could you imagine how motivated you would be to go out and try to find solutions to problems, to try to create something great and new? That's how you create teams, build teams that move mountains. It's all about supporting, empowering, mentoring, delegating, and then protecting and being a champion for your people. It's all about those things. So, the first five aspects of building this great team, these are all things that you got to do before you can accomplish number six and number seven. So, we'll walk back through them real quick so you can see how it all builds together. So, the first thing you have to do, identify your strengths and weaknesses specifically with regard to leadership and management. The second thing, identify each of your team members' strengths. Don't worry about trying to identify weaknesses up front. Weaknesses will be revealed over time. And when they come up, don't dwell on them or try to highlight them. Just identify them and then help to grow and mentor your people so that they get better. The third thing, you need to listen, learn about your team members, learn who they are, learn what they love. What do they love to do when they're not working? What do they want to do in their careers? And what skills or experience do they not yet have that they're going to need to get to where they want to go? Most importantly, you need to identify their intrinsic motivation, the thing that they are passionate about, that they care about, that's going to make them want to move. If you can tie their work to this thing, it will make them want to work even harder. Identify that. Number four, you need to recruit your number two, preferably somebody who excels at your weaknesses when it comes to management versus leadership. And then number five, you need to communicate your vision. You need to set the compass, which means giving people the first two or three major tasks that need to be accomplished as milestones, and then you need to cut them loose so that they can go. Once you've put those 5 steps into place, now your job becomes very, very complicated and very, very simple at the exact same time. Empower your people, mentor them, delegate responsibility to them, and support them. Be an umbrella for when the excrement comes rolling downhill so it can be deflected from them, and be their champion whenever they have something great that they've accomplished or a great idea that they have or any type of accolades come down. You make sure that they go to the members of your team. That is how you build a team that will move mountains. They will work their butts off for you. They will bleed and sweat and cry to make sure that they make you look good. And the key thing that I think a lot of new leaders and new managers don't get is when you become a leader, when you become a manager, when you're leading other people, the scale that you're judged on changes. You're not looked at as a success because of the amount of work that you physically get done yourself. You're not looked at as a success based on the number of tasks that you knock out. You're looked at as a success based on how well your people do, right? How well is the overall project performing? What is the major outcome? But on the other side to that, hey, the members of your team, how much smarter are they getting every day? How much do they love coming to work every single day? How many awards are they being recognized for? Those positive outcomes for your team members positively reflect on you as a leader. So the more that you uplift the members of your team and the more selfless you are when it comes to things like accomplishments and accolades, the better you actually end up looking because that's your job now. So I wanted to spend a little bit of this time today talking about that, talking about how to build a team that moves mountains, because I haven't yet talked about that. I haven't talked about the leadership experience that I have, expertise that I have in building and leading high producing teams, but that is a skill set that I do have as your host here. One of the additional services that I offer leadership coaching. For new managers, new leaders, and even up to the executive level when it comes to folks who need to develop leadership skills at all levels. That's something that I'm here to offer. It's an expertise that I have, and I've got a couple of certifications associated with that. So I just wanted to take this episode today to connect with you guys and talk about a little bit of the things that I'm good at, and the expertise that I have that can help members of organizations or you as individuals out in the audience to be better leaders of people starting tomorrow. So that's really all I have for today. Um, Last bits before we get out of here, I just want to say for those of you who have not yet joined us on Facebook in the Buy Black podcast community, I highly encourage you to join the Facebook group. Um, as that continues to grow, the engagement will continue to go up. The questions that get posted in there will continue to get more and different answers. The businesses that post in there, you guys will be able to actually interact with more and different entrepreneurs one on one. So definitely join us in the Buy Black Podcast community Facebook group. As well as that, I always leave you guys saying, hey, if you're not listening on the app yet, if you have an iPhone, if you have an Android, it doesn't matter. If you go to buyblackpodcast.com/app, you will be able to download either the Android or the iPhone version of our standalone app for Buy Black Podcast. If you download the app, not only do you get all the episodes, there's also bonus content that you will get, and there is a contact tab where you can actually call or text me directly from the app or send me an email directly from the app. It is probably the most convenient way for you to get access to this content and for you to get access to me. If you have questions or if you want to hit me on coaching, leadership coaching, or the training, consulting, or coaching that I'm also capable of doing. So that is my it's my big pitch for this week. Last but not least, talked last week about the fact that I'm opening up the show for advertising. So I'm going to be offering 30-second pre-roll advertising as well as a 60-second mid-roll advertising that I'm going to make available for the show. So anybody out there who has a business and you want to advertise on the show, get in front of our Buy Black podcast audience, reach out to me at gerald at buyblackpodcast.com. That is GERALD at buyblackpodcast.com, and we can talk about rates and all of that wonderful stuff. But that's it, guys. Thanks for joining me tonight on this solo episode, and we will catch you next week with our talk with JC Matthews about the different types of insurance and why it needs to be a part of your portfolio. And we'll also talk about how you can get into the game to become an insurance agent. So join us next week for that show. Until then, catch you next time.